I'm really thankful to be here and pleased to have the opportunity to conduct this interview with you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you, how did you come up to your most recently book, Wow, I am God and you are too? And which message do you want to tell us with this book?
Well, it's a funny story because that happened many years ago. And I was a group relaxation, it was a guided relaxation. And then all of a sudden we were meeting one of our guides, and when I talk with my guide, and then as I leave him, he gives me a gift. So I look at the gift he gives me, and it's a book that says, Wow, I Am God by Lise Bourbeau. And I says, oh my, I cannot write a book like that. Like it's like it was showing me a book already made, and I had never even thought of doing anything like that. So that was, all in my mind while I was doing a relaxation. So I just forgot that idea. And a few years later, I started to think maybe I should write my biography, because when I do my workshops, people always, oh, we love it when you give us your personal examples because we relate to that, and it helps us in our life. And I knew I could see that they like that, when I talked about my personal life. And also, another reason is that people thought that I had achieved like Christ life, like that I was already like somebody really, they put me too much on a pedestal, pedestal, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I kept telling them, look, I'm like you, I have my everyday life. Sometimes I get emotions, I get angry and impatient. And I'm just a normal person like you, with my children, my friends and everything, my husband. But I thought they had a hard time to imagine that I was still being a human being. So I thought, if I write a book and I explain how I used to be, how I am now, and I give I share what I go through, it will help them. So that's how I decided to write my biography. Then I start to write and write and write, and I always thought the name of the book would, autobiography of Lise Bourbeau. But as I was writing, it kept telling me that I should use that title, Wow, I Am God. So finally, it just kept coming back to me. So as I learned to listen to my intuition, I said, well, I'm a little scared to write that, to use that, but I have to follow it. It's too strong inside of me. And also it gave me my guideline in my book that, I can, my God self, and that everybody's God and everybody has the power of intuition, because to me, God is intuition. And so that's how I finally did it. Yes. It wasn't easy at first, when I first came out, and oh my God, the people kept saying, oh, excuse me. When they would meet me, and they'd say, oh, hi, God. They used to tease me. And, but after a while, it was okay. Then I never felt bad about it after that.
What do you want to tell us with this book?
That we all have the same powers. We all have any power we decide to use and accept within us, because God is your inner voice that knows everything that you need to do to think, to write. And if you follow that inner voice all the time, and that's, your life will be much, much easier. But because most of us are always following, or most of the time following the voice of the ego. The ego has taken so much room in this on earth that I figured that, well, I look at myself when I was younger, I would say that 70, 80% of the time, it was my ego running my life. Mm-hmm. And now I can see I can be many hours that my ego doesn't take over. And because, and we know the ego takes over as soon as we feel ill at ease, as soon as there's a fear or a guilt, or we're not feeling good, because that's ego. That means, whoop, I'm not listening to my inner God, to my inner voice. Yeah.
And if I understood correctly, when you're talking about inner God, you're talking about intuition, right?
Yes, intuition, love of ourselves, if the love, compassion, if acceptance, that's love. That's the inner God always inside of us. As soon as I'm judging somebody instead of accepting what's going on, or accepting a person the way they are, then I'm not listening to my self.
Yeah. Have you ever make a decision in your life not following your inner God and regretting it afterwards?
Yes, well, I've done that lots and lots and lots of times, that I took decisions that was not according to my inner God, to who I really am, to what I need. Because you see, we all come on earth with a definite plan, and soul keeps coming back all the time until we are able to just express this God self, just to express that, the love for ourselves, for others. And love is not, I love you. That's not the love I'm talking about. Love is accepting who I am, accepting to be a human being. We have to keep coming back all the time until we are able to be okay with ourselves, even if we make a mistake, even if we get angry, even if we forget something, even if we do something bad. We have to accept ourselves. And this is what the basis of my teaching, to this acceptance, because the ego is always making their decision with what it's learned. Ego is on memory of everything that we have gone through in the past, and that's good or bad. So we as soon as if I follow someone, I'm very impatient and I yell at my children. Then after that, little voice comes, well, come on now, you could be more patient. Aren't you ashamed to be a bad mother like that? In your voice, in your head. And that's ego talking. That's not accepting. Accepting would be, okay, today take a deep breath and I say, okay, today I've had many worries and I lose my patience. That's it. I am a human being and I'm allowed to lose patience sometimes. It's not what I prefer. I don't agree with that behavior, but I am a human being and it's impossible to always be patient, because people who try to always be so perfect, then they are always controlling themselves. They're not at ease, and they live in fear and guilt. And so as soon as there's fear, there's guilt, then it's the ego that took over. So when the ego takes over, our inner voice, our God self says, just okay, you're a human being. And so you see, we have to experiment all kinds of things, and like even somebody could become a killer. He has to accept that he killed, but then what helped to accept is learning about being responsible, because this is the other big part of my teaching, loving and responsibility. Because when we are responsible, we say, okay, I did this, it's very bad, it's not what I prefer. I lost my control. I even beat up somebody or I kill somebody. And well, now I have to assume the consequences. That's all. We just have to learn to assume the consequences. We can do anything we want in life. But if the consequences are bad, then it's not very intelligent. So do you want to live a life that's more intelligent for you with good consequences or not? And what I'm very happy about is that now with this Aquarian age, it's the energy of intelligence that is very, very much stronger. So this is why so many people are becoming more and more aware. This is why we have so many more people all the time who attend our classes or read my books, because it's all based on just, accept yourself, don't yourself on the head, but just make sure that you are aware that if you keep doing things that the consequences are bad, then it's not very good for you, because you have to put up with all those consequences. So why don't you choose an intelligent life instead of something that brings you problems? So this is what we're all here on earth to achieve.
Yeah, that's very important. And you said also about the importance of letting go situations, letting go people, things. And what is the most difficult situation in your life you had to release?
Well, what comes to mind is before I knew all this, what I'm teaching now, I had a business, and we with my husband, and because of my husband, he didn't do what he was supposed to do. We had a franchise. You think, is that a franchise for the company? And then we lost that franchise. Because so we had to go bankrupt and close the company. And it was this, I think I cried for 1 week. I couldn't accept that. It was really, really, to me, was the most terrible thing that was so unfair. And I had worked so hard, and I had all the reasons, to pity myself. And then now I started with my school. And I just see the difference when I'm using that example, to see how the letting go becomes easier with practice. Then when I started to practice letting go, because thinking, well, it's happening to me, there must be a reason. There's something inside of me that attracted that situation. See, this is being responsible, because being responsible is accepting the fact that no matter what happens to me, no matter what happens on the outside, people tell me, do to me, it always starts from inside of me. I attract it all the time. I'm always creating my life. So I know that this is very, very hard to accept, because the ego cannot understand those principles. And so after years of my school, I decided one day to buy a big, beautiful home, and I made it a big center, and I went to lots of that. I owed about $600,000. Now we're talking about something like 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And finally, I couldn't do it anymore. After 2-3 years of having all those financial problems, I had to just to take the key out of the building and give that big building back to the owner, because I couldn't continue the payments. So when I stopped that business there with the big center that we had there, I had nothing in my possession, but I owed $600,000. I had to pay for the taxes to the city and all kinds. But I had borrowed a lot of money from everybody that wanted to lend me money. And so it took me a few years to pay all that. Even my accountant told me to go bankrupt, but I couldn't, because people who had lent me money, they had lent me their savings. I just couldn't do that. But then I was lucky to start writing books, and then the income of the book paid for that after. And so I realized that even my husband at that time, when I put the key in the thing, and we came home, and he couldn't believe that I could sleep all night, because me, I the difference then, I let go completely. I said, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. I don't know how I'm going to pay that debt. I don't know what's going to happen to me, but there's a reason that I'm going to know one day I have to learn this situation. And so that was a big difference between the similar situations. But then I was really happy to have learned to let go. And this is, as soon as we let go, it means we take our responsibility and we believe in our power to get out of it. Even if we don't know how we're going to do it, we just have this strong confidence in ourselves. And then situations happen that all of a sudden my first book started to come out and sell more and more. And every month I would take the money I received from my book, and I would separate that, and send a little bit to everybody I owed. And that's the power of the letting go.
Yeah. Can you well, that's your example. Can you give us a tip on how letting go more easily?
Well, I think I've said it just before. The letting go is always take your responsibility. To always go, I can't believe this has happened to me. And, it could be somebody was very rude to me, or something that, you don't understand. Why is that happening? If you can just take a deep breath and just say, well, I don't know, there's something I have to learn about that. So this is why I have created many tools of all made up with questions. And like if it's something that I go through in my relationship, then I have all these questions. It's called a mirror exercise. So then when I answer 7 or 8 questions, then I know exactly what was in me that attracted this behavior from the other person. There's something I did not want to see about myself, that maybe I was being rude to myself sometimes. And as I know that we are here to accept ourselves in our bad or good parts of us, then if I accept to be rude sometimes, then I will accept when somebody else is rude. And it's a miracle. That exercise, to me, I've been teaching that for it'll be 40 years. This year we are celebrating our 40th year. And that's the tool that I use all the time, the mirror technique. It's so powerful to reconnect ourselves to our being. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And well, in your book, you were also describing that you were working hard when you were young, and that also because of your parents' education and the example they were giving you, that you have to work hard for your money. What was the eye-opening experience which influenced you to get out of this circle of being pressure and work hard?
Okay. Well, it's the working hard that is not okay, because it's how you are inside when you are working. Because me, well, everybody knows my age, because I I put it in my book, you know. So I'll be in 2 weeks. I will be 81 years old, and then I still work a lot. I'm still very, very busy because that's my nature. But it's if I worked and I would look at the times, oh my God, I hope the day will end soon. And you know, I work, but it's heavy and I really feel like doing something. Well, then this is when it's not good for you to work hard because maybe you are forcing yourself. If you are and wanting to control something or forcing, then it's very bad for you. So it's to me, I have lots of energy and I don't see myself just sitting home watching TV or not knowing what to do. I love to read, cannot read all day. And so I like, so I even with my school, you know, I have my daughter and her husband who are everything with the hand of a master. They are doing such a great job. And then the whole, all the employees in the trainers we have, they are doing fantastic. Listen to you, my school does not need me anymore because it's going very well. And so I have let go of a lot of things, many workshops I don't do anymore, but always something projects arrive. And so I'm always into something new. And that really lights me up and gives me fun. Like what I'm doing with you today, I do that about 4 or 5 times a week now that I do interviews on Zoom. So it's my way to spread the teaching, even if I don't do the workshops anymore. So people think I work a lot because I'm very active, but I'm not tired at the end of the day. I'm just happy about what I've done. So this is, you know, it's not working hard that is bad, because I saw my parents work very, very hard, and they work mostly physically in those days. But I had a good example that when they stopped, had fun, like we love music, dancing, playing cards at home. I could see that they took the time to enjoy themselves. So to me, that was something that I always liked. So this is why I continue, and I take the time to go on trips and to have fun. Also, I'm like my parents. I like to party and play cards. Yeah. But it's if I know some people who had parents that work very hard, and they say I will never be like that because they had never had time for me, and it was their work all the time. They were, you know, nothing else mattered. They just wanted to make money, and because my parents they had to both work because we were 11 children, and my father's salary was paying only for the food. For everything else, they had to have another income. That's why my mother had to work too. So but I never felt that we were not cared for, because it's true that they did not have much time to sit with us, to do our homework, you know, the school work and things like that. But we being a big family, we had brothers and sisters, and so it's always, you have to look at what's behind. If you're doing it because it goes wow inside of you and you like it, then no, it doesn't matter if you work a lot or not. It's just what makes you feel better. Mm.
Okay, thank you. And your book also, when you took the path of personal development and spirituality, you mentioned that you were giving more space and place to the feminine principle. How did it look like in practical terms?
Well, that was interesting when I started to understand that about and the masculine. That was many, many years ago. And because I always had this energy of a chief, like even when I was going to school, the nuns at school, they would put me in charge of this, in charge of that, because I always had this ability to run things and to be the little chief, and and people accepted. It's like they saw that in me, and the problem with being with having an energy of being a chief is that we tend to control too much. So everybody who has that ability to be a chief, they run a company or whatever, they're in charge of this, in charge of that. All of us, we all have to work on a way of controlling things and controlling people. So I realized that I was wanting to control too much. And it was, they were used to me, but my employees and even my sisters sometimes would say, stop complaining, La. You should be more positive. And, I was reading all those positive books. They never even asked my opinion, but when I'm the one that would give my opinion without being asked all the time, because I thought that my intention was good, but the way I was doing it was not good, because I was trying to control them. I wanted them to act the way I thought was good. And so I did the same with my employees. And I realized that by doing that, it was draining my energy. And I started to learn about the characteristics of the feminine part and the masculine part in us, in all of us. And I realized I was much too much in my masculine part of me, because to have to be centered and to be following our inner guide, we have to allow both our feminine and masculine to run our life. So it's the feminine part of me that will say, oh, it would be so nice to do this or to do that. Like when we have a feeling, a desire, this always comes from the feminine part. And then the masculine part is the part that says how to do it and when to do it. But me, it was always my feminine running my life, because as soon as I wanted something, I wanted it now. This is why, when I bought this big mansion there and I wanted to it was much too feminine, because I could not afford that in those days, but I bought it anyway. I went into lots of debts. If I had taken the time of listening to the masculine part that says, now, Lise, this is a good idea, but you cannot afford it for now. Why don't you don't stop your idea, but why don't you wait a year or two, and then you'll have some more money, and the masculine part, but I never even wanted to listen to that, because we have a way to know what our masculine part says by listening to other people, because other people were telling me that. They were saying, I even had a partner then at the beginning of my school, and he says, I do not agree with your decision, and I don't even want to sign with you. You are the only responsible for what you are doing right now. And then other people, my family would say, are you out of your mind to buy something like that? And so, in fact, they were just the echo of my masculine part that was talking to me. But I did not want to say, oh, come on now, you're supposed to be happy for me, and now you're being negative. I want to be positive. And it took me many years, though, to realize that how much if I wanted somebody to do something and the other person, my employee, for example, would say, well, Lisa, can I tell you that there's something that I don't agree with your idea? And no, listen, I've thought about it and this is what I want. You see, I would listen to other people. I was wanting to control all the time. So one day, that's what helped me in those days to create a group of people that we meet once or twice a month. Yeah, it was twice a month then, to take the decisions for my school. You know, like we call that la gestion in French. Gestion, the group of the people more like the accountant, the person in charge of the trainers, and like one person out of each department that we would get together, 4 or 5 of us, every 2 months, every 2 weeks, and we would talk about decisions to take, and I would sit and listen to what they had to say. Like almost every time I would say, oh, I've got a new idea. This, oh God, these are a new idea again. My poor employees, they were dragging themselves trying to follow me with all my new ideas. And then, and because I said to them, look, I'm creating this book because I want to learn how to listen to my man inside of me, my masculine part. I want to be able to stop being so spontaneous and not thinking about consequences. And so it's this is how it happened. And then I learned slowly to listen to what they say, and then if I would make a vote, you know, is there people that are against my idea, then I'd say, oh, I feel so bad. I didn't convince you people, but I accept, you know. So that's how I started to be much more, and it's funny because my husband at the time, he was very masculine, always thinking, well, let me think about it, you know, like if I had a spontaneous, let's go away for the weekend somewhere, and says, well, let me think about it. Oh, gee, you're always taking the fun out of me by your thinking all the time. And so he was very masculine, and me, I was too feminine. So as I worked on myself, it slowly happened that Jacques became more spontaneous, and I became more thinking and, you know, taking the time to see the for and against, and you know, so it's that was very interesting. I was watching myself change, and this is why it's the company has grown all the time. And my daughter and her husband, who run the company, they do the same too. They're always we don't stop being spontaneous, but we are more reasonable.
Yeah, very interesting. That's part of the next question, and because you impressively describe how important is it to truly give people time, to give generously, and to be thankful.
Yeah, well, I love to give presents. I love to pay, you know, bring somebody on a trip with me, and things like that. Yes, I realized a long time ago that the more I give and the more I receive. So that part was not hard for me to do. It's I've always been generous, and because I strongly believe that we what you sow you reap, you know. It's and I just feel like, let's say like now I'm going away on a trip in Mexico to for 2 weeks. I need some sun, and so I decided I wanted to pay the trip to my sister who lives with me now, and and she afford that kind of trip. And so to me, just the thought of bringing her with me, and I got some business class airline tickets and the whole works, and really a nice, I organized a beautiful trip. And I just, it goes, there's so much wow inside of me, just the thought of her, experimenting that and doing that. And so this is how, anytime I give somebody, or I sometimes I give some money to my sons or my grandchildren, and then I said, "Oh, I've got a little something for you." And then they open the envelope. And, "Oh, thank you, Elise. Thank you. That's what I needed." And just a joy that they have. It's, to me, it's worth all the things that I give. Yeah, yeah. And
And sorry.
I in general also with my time too. People need advice. They know they can call me anytime. And
How can we imagine when you said, I'm gonna give me today something what I would like to. I'm gonna give me a present from you to you.
yeah, okay. Well, I do that all the time. I'm always listening. Oh yes, this I have always taken the time. Even when I was, working 90, 100 hours a week. Um, I know that I give a lot and I work a lot, but I listen to my needs. It's a massage, or I go buy myself something that I don't need. This. So I see a nice, beautiful little piece of jewelry. I don't need it because I got lots. Just it just says buy me. I like it. I said, why not? And then because I'm so uh, uh, I'm so thankful for everything that has happened in my life, and all the I was born with many talents, and I was born with a good mind, and a good a healthy body, and I'm also so thankful. Like every day I say thank you. I don't know how many times a day, and at night when I go to before going to sleep also, the first thing I do when my head hits the pillow, I start to say my thank yous of the day, some things that I forgot. It could be all kinds of small things. Let's say I'm going out for something. As I get into my car, I say, "Oh my God, I forgot this." I'm so thankful that my intuition told me before I left my house that I forgot something important, because it would have caused me a problem if I got where I was going without that. And so I said thank you to my intuition, and it's always and I find that if I listen to my own needs, that means that other people listen to my needs. You see, whatever I do for myself, other people do it for me. So I take the time to see what me. I listen to the wow inside of me all the time. If I think of something, is it does it go wow when I think of getting that, and it says yes, I know that I need it. I know that it's good for me, and so this is how I judge. If I want something, but it's okay even if I don't have it, then I know I don't really need it. You know. Mm.
Yeah, yeah. I read also part of it in your book, and I was also being impressed on how when you're using the word wow. I think it's what you're not meaning right now. Like, wow, thank you that I realized I need that so that I could express it
Yeah.
and then make it real.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then if it goes wow, then I know for a fact that it's something that a part of me needs. But you know what the problem is that 2 seconds later, the ego takes over. Now, come on now, you're not being reasonable. No, you don't really need that. And who do you think you are? Or you're spending too much. Or there's always something makes you feel, or what are they going to say? I remember one thing that I wanted for myself a long time was to go around the world in a ship, so my first thought, I started to think about that when I was 25 years old, and I saw myself having my own boat, later on with the captain, and I'm traveling all over the seas everywhere. And I said, then my ego would say, but how are you going to do that? You'll never have the money to. Only very rich people can have that, your own yacht and everything. Well, I want that. And just that thought made me feel so good, just to be going around the world. So finally, I realized that I could not do that because my husband was seasick. So because we tried, we rented the big yacht and with the captain, and I wanted to try it before. And then we went away on the sea for a few weeks, and so he was sick. So I had to change my mind. So we decided to cruise. So I decided to take a cruise around the world for 3.5 months on this big, beautiful cruise ship. But when I decided to do that, and I didn't have the money then, I had to put that on the credit, and I said, I don't know how I'm going to pay, but I'm going to pay it. I want to do that. And it took me, you have to book those cruises about a year ahead of time. And all that time, I could not tell my family I was doing that, not tell anyone, because I felt ashamed. I was afraid of what they would say. I was afraid that they would, that I was really unreasonable and crazy to do that, and to go into debt to do something like that. And I was afraid of their reaction, and I want to make them feel bad also, because they couldn't even afford having a little holiday, and there I am talking about my big cruise affair. So you can see how the ego was very active, of giving me all the reasons that I should be ashamed of me allowing myself to do that and paying myself that. So it was about a month before we left, I finally told my family where I was going. And the reaction was, oh, we're so happy for you because you've been working so much all your life and you deserve it, and have fun. And felt so good. And then I realized that how the trouble of listening to that darn ego, because all these months, I did not have the pleasure of sharing it my close ones, and so this is all these kinds of these experiments that help me to realize how the ego stops us from feeling good, listening to our inner God, that yes, we are allowed to do anything in life. Who cares? It's nobody else's business if I buy something very, very expensive or not, if I lose it or not, if I can't pay for it or not. It's this ego of us, like I can see it now with the pandemic that we are going through, how the ego is having so much fun, because it's always making people scared all the time. And the ego is really taking over. And I feel bad in a way, because I'm hoping that this will help people to realize how they let their ego control their life. I hope that this pandemic, and I believe that it will be something that's happening right now on Earth, to help people realize that they should not listen to their fears like that all the time. And because as much as I do what's going on now, and it's something. I think we are being given a big message on earth to help us become more aware of: am I listening to my God self, or am I listening to my ego?
I have one more question for you today, but first I want to say thank you for the time today. I want to say also thank you for the amazing trip, full of knowledge I did while reading it. And thank you for sharing your life and sharing your experiences with us and letting us, taking you as inspiration to try to find our inner God, to try to find us. And well, my last question is about the young mothers today. What can you advise them to these young mothers whose children are growing up nowadays in terms of school supporting and fulfilling career later on? How can conscious mothers strengthen their children's nowadays?
Well, they only have to be an example. Children, right from their birth, even before they are born, in the womb of the little baby in the womb is already hearing things, feeling things going on around that baby. So they are just, as soon as they open their eyes, they start observing and listening and feeling all the time. So it's, if let's say the father says to his son, like he punishes his son because he lacked respect, and the father is always lacking respect to everybody around him, insulting people and his wife and everybody. Like the son will say, he'll go right over his head. He doesn't want to listen to his dad because he's not a good example. It will not. Even if he punishes his son many times, it will not not change anything. We just have to be example. And this is the subject of my last book that I'm writing right now. And it should come out in French next year, but not yet. No. Now this through now, 2022. This year, we are in the new year now, it's about the 5 most important children that I write the whole book. And so, how can parents from baby, even in the womb, all the way to, I talk about even problems with adult children, because in the workshops, most questions we have from people taking workshops is problem with the children, and many problems with adult children. The child is 25 years old and doesn't want to work, and he needs money, and the mother feels obligated to give him money, and that she doesn't like it, you see. Or problem with the husband gets married, and his wife can't stand the mother-in-law. She doesn't want the mother-in-law to come to their house. There's lots of problems, even if your children are adults. So, and I can share what those 5 most important needs of the youth. I talk about the children of the new era, because the children of today are so intelligent because they were born in the new energy of intelligence. And as soon as they hear or see something that's not intelligent in the system, in school, at home, anywhere, they just can't take it. They just block. They block themselves. They don't want to listen to anybody. They don't want to. They have no respect. And because they can't believe that people act without intelligence, because that's all they feel in their inner God, and that's what they have inside. So respect is the most important need of the new children. And then it's communication, really, communicate all the time, because the young child comes home and he, oh, I don't want to go back to school because the so and so is always beating me up, and he's bad. He hurts me, and I'm afraid of him. And a little child is 7, 8 years old. And what do the parents say? They say, "Oh, come on now! You have to learn to fight back, and don't let him do it." And just ignore him. That's all. They try to they think this way it will stop the problem. It doesn't work. They don't communicate. They're giving orders all the time. The communication would be, okay, sit down with them. Well, how do you feel? Like, what goes inside of you? Do you feel hurt? Do you feel bad? Do you feel powerless? How do you feel? And what are you afraid of, and then just make them talk about what's going on inside of us. And what do you really want in that situation? Would you want to be able to say something or do something else? Or what do you want? And just make him talk, and then say, well, okay, let's try to find a solution to make you happen what you want. And so this is what I'm giving examples of how to come back with a child. So if the children can learn that when they're very young, as soon as something's going bad, I don't like in my life, I ask myself those questions. That would be so wonderful, because if the parents would start this way with their children, they would never have problems when they're adults. So respect, communication, pleasure, have fun, but please, make sure that they have things that gives them pleasure, or the pleasure of giving, or the pleasure of receiving. There has to be some pleasure, not always serious at home, and affection, the fourth one. And the last one is security. And it's interesting, because before, when in the other era, in my time when I was younger, these 5 strong needs were opposite. We wanted security first. Respect was at the end. If we had security and we had affection, that was satisfying us in the last era. But no more now, because the children are too intelligent. Those souls are such old souls, and I just love talking to a young child. Like, I now have, I have 8 grandsons. Now they're all adults, but I have 2 great granddaughters, 4 and 7 years old. I have so much fun just listening to them, and with their big eyes, and they tell me things that are so deep, they're so deep. They says, "Oh, come on, Lisa, why do you say that?" Things like that. And to them, they're so spontaneous and true. They just say what they think, and it's not because they don't like me. They are just truthful. But us, what we learn is we must not say we think. We would keep it inside of us. So it's very different to have children today, but it can be so much more fun, though, because they're great intelligence.
Yeah, and they don't have any mask.
No, they're just being themselves. And then if we stop them from being themselves, they start to close up. And this is what explains the increase all the time of suicide with the children all over the earth. It's everywhere. It's like that, because they say, "What's the use living in a world like this? I'll come back some other time." They just decide to go. And I can understand. I see and hear so many things that I think, how can parents do this, say things like that to their children? You know, it's especially today, the children are so clairvoyant. They're so deep. They know right away, because I remember, like, I divorced with my first husband because for 15 years I tried to change him, because in those days I was very controlling. And so, but you know that my oldest son, he knew before me that I was going to divorce. He would say, well, what's wrong with you? He was what, 13, 14 years old, maybe. What's wrong with you and daddy? And I said, nothing's wrong. You know, like I had not even thought about divorce yet, but he had seen it. Yeah. Because the new children that I call the Aquarian age children, the new era, it started about at least almost years ago. You know, that to have, and then my three children are really what we call new children, and I'm glad that I learned what I've learned. I would have loved to know what I know now when they were young, but it's because we did not have the relationship that I would have if I had to start over. But it was necessary for me to be with a husband or with my children when it was my ego running my life, and after that when it was my heart running my life, because my relationship with my second husband was just like day and night. And it's not because my second husband loved me more. No, because the first one really loved me a lot. I know that. I know today, but it's just my behavior was completely different. And so it was scary to see the before and now, to make the difference so that I could teach it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the time, and it was great to talk to you, and I'm willing also to hear about the other book. And yes, then until next time.
Yes, well, thank you. It was very good. You had very good questions, and you have a nice smile too. So
Okay.
Thank you, and good luck with your life. Yes. Goodbye to all the women that are listening to this, and I hope that you are happier and happier all the time too. Yes, just you have to make it happen. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.